Hello everyone, we just finished another day on the Hanok, and tomorrow we're getting ready to pour the new floors, so I thought it'd be a good time for another update video. So let's take a look at what's been done already. So the first thing you'll probably notice, well, maybe one of the first things you'll probably notice is we're starting to get some green. It's starting to warm up a little bit here and the sun's coming in. The trash pile that you saw in the last video has been replaced by a different trash pile, and now some actually useful useful stuff. Yeah, so we're coming along. One of the big things that's been happening, I think in the last video, this wall was still here, and it was a concrete wall. And I think this wall was completely gone. So basically what we've done is gone through and removed all of the walls. So we kept the main beams. So the beams for the frame, we've kept all of these main beams all along. So for example, there's a beam here and a beam here in the corners. So we've kept basically the original frame, but we removed all of the concrete walls that basically had no insulation at all. By the way, there's a nice tree in the neighbor's garden, really pretty. And then we basically put everything back in. So I'll talk a little bit more about the walls in a second. One thing that you might notice, or I think I've already done it in the last video, but here used to be this overhang. We completely removed that overhang, and I'll walk in there. Another thing that you might notice, there was an overhang here, but it was a really kind of gross, essentially tin roof with no insulation. We've now replaced that completely with wood, and we've made it a little bit longer, more kind of Korean style, original Korean style, this long chama. So I'm going to come around the back. I don't know if I showed the back before, but we've basically cleaned up everything. There was also an overhang hanging out here, so I removed all of that, and we've cleaned up everything. In one of the first videos that I showed, we had on this wall, there were 3 windows. So one window for the back room, one window for the living room, and one window for kind of the kids' room. And then right here was right where I'm standing now, was a boiler for heating. And then here on this wall was a door and some storage space. So now we have no boiler here, so all of this is completely opened up, so we can actually potentially do something with it. You can see this rod here, which is holding up this wall. The wall was leaning a lot, so we're temporarily using that rod to hold everything up. And then this is the old chama. So you can see here, for example, the gutter has already rusted away completely because there was an overhang. They never did any maintenance on the gutters or anything, so the gutters were basically useless. So while we're talking about that, what they have started doing, this is kind of the old chama, or old overhang, and you can see where we've started to replace all of this with plywood, new plywood that's not completely rotted out. And for some reason, behind this old stuff, it's very, very dusty and dirty and rocky. I think rocks from maybe the roof or something, I don't know. So we're pulling most of that down, or at least covering it up if we can. If it's just terrible, then we tear it down. If it's kind of like this, it's okay. So yeah, we're replacing all of that, and so far, if you didn't see it in the last video, basically most of this was completely rotted out and kind of falling apart, so now it's looking pretty good. I'm not sure if we're going to paint it or what the plan is yet, but already looks much better. After one and a half days, they basically did half of one side. So it's a really intensive process. to do all of that. We still have this original overhang over here. That will come down eventually, and then we'll be able to get to that roof as well. One thing, they've been taking down the gutters, so you can see how nice the roof actually looks without that disgusting guttering, but we need gutters, so I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. So now let's go in. We did have a window. This is pointing into the kitchen. We had a window that was kind of more over a little bit, which I liked because it was letting in more light, but I'll show you why we moved it in a second. Let me go around the other side. So one thing about the house, before it was completely concrete, they just really liked concrete and they thought it was a much warmer option. Except for us, it was really cold. So we wanted something a little bit better. So all the walls now are wood, which is what I'm actually used to for construction. So we've replaced everything with wood beams, and then kind of a standard wooden wall with sheetrock on the outside. And then that's going to be all covered over. On the floors look, I think, quite different than what you would normally see in the US. I think it's starting to get popular there, but I'm not really sure yet. This is really common for Korea, and I think also now in Europe. Floor heating systems. So Korea has floor heating pretty much everywhere. It's called ondol. Really comfortable heating. If you can do it right and you have good insulation, then it's a really nice way to do heating. So we tore up all of the floors. They were concrete. And a couple other things. It was really difficult to get all the concrete out of here after we took up all the floors, but we got everything taken out, and then we lowered all of the floors to be even with the kitchen. So you might remember that the kitchen had a giant step down. Now all of this is completely even with the kitchen through the entire thing. And tomorrow they're going to pour concrete on top of all of this, and then basically these pipes run hot water through them, gas heated, and then the concrete heats up and you get some really nice kind of ambient heating off of the floor. It's great for sleeping. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's just nice. As long as your house is well insulated, it's very nice. If your house is not well insulated, you kind of end up sitting right on one of those coils because you're so cold. But I think it should be okay. Another thing you might notice from here is there were some pillars that were holding up the roof, the ceiling. We've replaced those with these huge beams. The huge beams are basically also put up in kind of Korean style with these overhangs. So they were able to make the structure of the house much stronger by adding those beams, so much so that they could remove the pillars that were holding up the beams. So we just get this straight shot all the way through, and that's pretty much what we were going for anyway. You can see the roof. They've done a lot to try to strengthen everything. There's this parts that they're going to keep up there just because it was already insulated, so the entire roof will eventually need to be fixed, but so far they say that they've already strengthened the house. Strengthened the house by what? I don't know. I think they said four or five times what it actually was before. Before it had a tendency to twist because of the way that it was structured, but now they've kind of got everything hopefully lined up, and I can tell. Well, anyway, it's much stronger now. Let's just say that. So we're gonna fix the roof later, but that's really later. There's kind of, I think I already talked about this. There's some holes in the waterproofing for the roof. We don't have any major leaks yet, but there will be. So this window, basically this part that I just came into, this window here, is going to be a big window and a door on each side, but basically just a big piece of glass. And then, yeah, that's just a wall. And then there's going to be a deck kind of out here, a small deck, what they call in Korean a maru, sitting out, and then that's going to look onto this garden. Hopefully there's not going to be trash there in the future. And then this is, let me stand back a little bit. This is Bo Young's reading nook. So she wanted a place to read, and that's her window view, which will be much better later. So the funny thing is, this is one of the most important windows. Like, that's kind of the thing that we said we absolutely wanted, and that's the window that they forgot. So I came in and I'm like, oh guys, we got to put in another window. They put that in whenever I was at work, so I came back and let them know. One thing, so I said that there were 3 windows along this wall, and as you can see now we only have 1 window along this wall, because everyone was telling me do not have a lot of windows facing the west. I actually had, I think, 2 big windows facing west, and they really recommended against west-facing windows. So I kind of compromised and said, at least in the kind of main center space, we need a little bit of a window, which I think was a good idea, because if you look over right now, you can kind of see where the sun is coming in, and all of this will also be a piece of glass, and where that sun is coming in right now will be the main entrance door. So main entrance door plus glass, something called system glass, I'm not really sure, but system glass. So the reason I like this, or the reason I'm happy about it, is because, might be a little too late now, but what you could see, possibly, before, was the sun about, it's almost 6 o'clock now, but about 5 o'clock the sun was right in the kitchen, and the kitchen was quite bright. So I like where that window is placed, and if you look out the window right now, I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but there's a really nice tree. So while you're looking out, you get a good garden view from the neighbors, so cool on them. And from basically any point in the house, you can see our garden. You should be able to see it. Okay, I skipped over the bathroom, so I'll come there real quick. Sorry, I have to not walk on the pipes. Okay, so the bathroom, lots of really interesting things with the bathroom. So the toilet is going to go right in front of the door, and then the window right above the toilet. And then next is going to be the sink and then the shower. So sink and then shower. And in this case, our big thing with the bathroom was that it was too cold. So what the contractors we got ended up doing is saying that, first off, the bathroom we had was too ugly. And it really difficult to insulate, because it was also just brick and a little bit of concrete and then a tin roof with no insulation. So they said just insulating it doesn't really make sense. So what we did is just tore down the small brick bathroom and added, how can I say this, about 70 centimeters, 70? Was it 70? Yeah, we added about 70-ish centimeters to the bathroom space, and that makes it actually quite a bit bigger. And then we're going to have a pocket door, sliding door that goes in. So now the bathroom's a little bit bigger, so it's kind of a normal bathroom size, and then I think it looks pretty good. And then we have the floor heating coming in here, along with some insulation, so that should be, already it should be much warmer, just because it's not built terribly. The way they built the last one is basically just made kind of like a surrounding with brick that was hollow on the inside, and then covered that with kind of a board and then a little bit of concrete, and then that was it. And basically it's like an outside bathroom just connected to your house. So it was freezing. Yeah. Okay, so coming into the bathroom. Yeah, here's this. Oh yeah, we added, we planned for this window. So a big window on the north, and the only thing that's there is a brick wall. But the point is there's a breeze that comes in from the north side. So I'll try to show a little bit. So through this kind of, I don't know, alleyway, We actually do get a breeze because of the way that this is made. So the roof and the concrete almost touch. It kind of makes a funnel for any wind. So that wind usually goes to the other side, and then you can see that overhang. It goes through the overhang. Almost all the time there's a little bit of a breeze, right? Because just the way that everything kind of worked out, the air has nowhere else to go, so it just kind of funnels through here. So we have this giant north-facing window, so whenever it's very, very hot, we can just open this window and open the door on the south and get a breeze through the house pretty much anytime. So I can already feel it, so I'm already happy about that. I assume it's going to stay the same. Yeah. So coming back to the kitchen, so all of the heating runs through here. We have the kitchen, and then we have the window for the kitchen. I'll talk about that in a second. So the way the kitchen is going to be is first the refrigerator, then the sink, and then a under cabinet washing machine, not dishwasher, just clothes washing machine, and then some cabinet space, and then a induction range and an electric oven. So I haven't really seen many ovens in Korea, but there's a lot of cool things we can cook if we have an oven, so we're gonna get an oven, or at least that's the plan for now. So we added a window, and the sink is going to be right under that, and then I'm not sure what we're going to do about that view, but we will make it much prettier than just concrete and brick. The view out of this window is a little bit better, but the window, if I can back up a little bit, the window is kind of a weird placement. So if I'm at the counter, then I can't really see out. So I'm a little bit disappointed about that, because I would like it to be over a little bit more so we can actually see if anyone's coming in. But the refrigerator is going to be here. So if we open the refrigerator, then it could hit the window and break it. I'm pretty sure that's what the reasoning was. Or I just should have been here whenever they framed that window too. So I don't know. Yeah, and then a big nice window here, and we'll have I'm hoping to extend the garden out a little bit more, but we'll see about that. And then we added a door to the kitchen, and the idea is that right outside of the door is going to be kind of like a eating or barbecue picnic area. So then you can just go through the kitchen, cook something, and then go right out. We have this little room built up, and I'll talk about that in a second. That's the boiler room. I'll talk about why it's a separate room. And then we have the kind of this empty space, and that is going to be a pantry. So a Hanok style pantry, kind of built-in shelving. On this wall, it's just a standard wall, but I'm going probably to put more shelving, and then either more storage or kind of like a coffee bar or something. I'm not sure yet. So in the back view, we haven't started on the chama yet. So back view, this is where the boiler is going to be. So all the piping is already ready for concrete pouring tomorrow, and then filling it with water. The boiler, we're getting a condensing boiler because it's supposedly more efficient. I hope, I just hope everything works well. And then the condensing boiler needs a drain, so we've already ran the drain and everything for that. So the reason that we have a separate room with a door on the outside for the boiler room is because it is a gas boiler. So it's partially regulation and partially just people saying that you should do it. Any gas boiler that connects to anything, you should have a separate, you shouldn't have the gas coming into your house from a boiler, because if there's a leak, then it goes into your house and it's more dangerous. But at the same time, the room is also in the house, so let's see. But anyway, that's the only gas thing we're gonna have, and that's just basically for heating in winter. I'm going to use electric basically for everything else. Not basically, I'm going to use electric for everything else. We haven't run the electric yet. I'm still debating exactly how we're going to do everything. The gas line isn't run to the house yet, so we actually have to go from outside, and then we can bury the gas line. So we're going to break up all of this concrete all the way along, and then run it back into the boiler room. Yep. So this is kind of the main entrance from the front. And then here will be basically bookshelves with built-in fold-down desks. So I already have a plan for that. It should be okay. And then our idea, I'm not sure if it's going to work yet. We don't have the money to do it now anyway. But the idea is you can kind of see where the plumbing or the heating stops. And that is where doors should go. So hanging down doors that are Hanok style doors inside that will actually separate the rooms. But whenever they separate the rooms, you can fold the doors up and then make one huge room by itself. And there are traditional doors that fold up, and then you can just see directly out. So I wanted to do these fold up doors kind of everywhere, but the Hanok doors are really, really expensive because they're really pretty. So those will be maybe the next project after we can pay for fixing the roof. Yeah, so things are going along. The expected, or the contract finish date is, let's say, April 22nd. But I think it's probably not going to be April 22nd, just because there was a lot of little things that take a lot of time, manual labor kind of time. So for example, pulling up all of the concrete on the floors, and then evening everything out took a lot of time because we have to carry everything out. We can't just throw it into a truck and go, because the road isn't very big leading to our place. It's just that big, and there's no road behind. There's just another house. So there's a little kind of walkway. There's no car parking up by the house, which is fine because I don't have a car anyway. Except for construction, it makes it a lot more manual. These kind of soffits, or the chama fixing, is really manual because you have to cut each of those boards out to size, and then fit them in there and staple them up. So that takes a long time. One thing I want to talk about is the floors. So whenever we pulled up the floors, I probably complained in one of the first videos that the floors were super, super, super cold. Now, the whole house was really cold, and that's why we decided to renovate the whole thing anyway, like tearing everything down and completely restarting, because the house was built in the early 80s, and the owners were kind of the type of people not really to fix anything. They didn't fix anything, they just covered over whatever problem that they had at the time. So if they had a problem, they would cover it over with whatever they thought would fix it, and then it probably made it a little bit better. And since it was a little bit better, that was good enough for them. But over time, that way of fixing things is a really bad idea, because their house was just too cold, even though they were investing a lot of money in fixing and heating it. One of the reasons was the house built in the 80s, they had something called like an original style ondo. So what we're building now is a new style ondo with heat piping and all that stuff. Before, they would have basically sand, and then they would build kind of these chimneys, under the floor chimneys with brick, and then they would use, let's see, these pieces of slate. So these are really long, flat rocks, like chipped off, so it's just a bunch of slate. I managed to save a couple once I realized that they're really good for like stepping stones or something like that, so I saved some. But this was actually the floor heating before. So they would heat a fire, and then channel the heat from the fire through these little chimneys under the floor, and then this slate would heat up. Then on top of the slate is a very thin layer of wood, like a wooden floor, or just paper. And then in this case, they had a thin layer of rock on top of the slate, and then I think originally they covered that with paper. So they had sand, and then this huge like air gap that you're supposed to warm up, and then slate, and then a very thin layer of rock or cement on top of the slate. And they quit using that heating system, but instead of removing the original heating system, they put just another, basically a layer of newspaper on top of the top layer, and then a really weird tube system, like a really old tube system, and then more concrete on top of that. The problem is the cold air was still like able to move around underneath in that space. So the heat tubing that they had was heating up their layer of concrete, but then underneath it they had another layer of concrete that also got heated up because it wasn't insulated between it, and then that would heat up the slate, and then that would heat up, and then there was cold air running underneath that slate. So basically what they were doing is cooling off all of their heating. So there's no possible way that they could properly heat the house. And then, like you saw in an earlier video, most of the walls, the concrete walls, had shrunk. So then there would be gaps between the main beams and the walls themselves. So you have huge gaps between the walls, leaking air, and then your heating system is basically being pulled down into the ground instead of up into the room. So it's just terrible because they didn't actually remove everything and do it properly. So they didn't have a real heating system in the house. So they tried to make their rooms smaller. They tried to cover their rooms in a bunch of different layers of wallpaper. You can still kind of see some of the wallpaper there. So they had maybe 10 layers of wallpaper just because they had never removed the old one, and they were adding more to try to get more insulation. Plus, everything was concrete, and it wasn't very thick concrete, so anytime it would get cold, it was just really, really cold. So, yeah, not the best way to try to heat. And that's eventually why the couple decided to sell, was because the wife was just too cold all the time. And I can't blame her. I was in there for like a month and a half. And I didn't want to, go to the bathroom and take a shower because it was just too cold. Even just living in the tiny main room that they had insulated as much as they possibly could, it was also just freezing. So I eventually put in an electric heater, and it got a lot better, but then we had a huge electric bill. So the way the house was before in winter was completely unsustainable, and the reason is a lot of small things. So just trying to cover over problems instead of going in and fixing them. So for us, or for me, I can say, tearing down everything, even though it was quite expensive, it'll be totally worth it because we essentially get a new house that's done properly. That's the idea, at least. So in this case, this white stuff is I think it's about 2-inch foam. Right under that is sand, and then concrete will go on top of that. And then around the edge, they have insulation, so none of that concrete should touch any of the foundation or anything. So should be good. We shouldn't be losing, let's say, too much heat. And then in the walls, I think they're also going to use the 2-inch foam. The highest R value is what's quoted, so we'll see what they end up giving us. But I expect it to be, even now, I think it's probably already warmer than what it would be if you just had the way that they were doing it before. So yeah, so everything really going pretty good with the house. I'm pretty excited about it. Less than a month until it's finished. That's the idea, at least. So we'll see. Yeah. And then we can hopefully actually not get started on the garden We'll probably be doing, let's see, gas, breaking up the concrete for the gas, and then maybe fixing the walkway. Not sure what to do about the walkway yet. All of this is actually garden area or dirt, so I want to potentially even it up, but I'm still not sure yet. So anyway, that's the little update where we're at now. Pouring the concrete tomorrow, so I think everything will look very different the next time you see it. So far, so good. Okay, have a good day.